Are you there, Andrea?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the audience is very much ready for you and looking forward to your talk. Um, so we have Andrea now online, and he will start speaking about IT security projects.
Hi, everybody. It's been a pleasure to be invited. I will be very quick in telling you what has been my story, practically. Okay. So, well, I got my PhD, go very quick to the point. I got my PhD in 1990, quite some time ago. And for 10 years, I've been doing research and teaching at university, included Leuven. But in 2000, I changed my mind. So 15 years ago, I left the university practically, even if I've been kept teaching for a few more years. And I started working in security, in IT, mostly networking and security. If you're watching my slides, you can go to number 2. So what I do, I own a very small company. I'm independent from that point of view, and the very small company means practically that I work by myself most of the time. My customers are typically, at the beginning, were particularly internet providers and telecom companies, and then slowly I moved to work mostly with financial and big companies. What do? I do security in IT, which means that I have different projects. The technical level I do from firewall configurations to design and implement anti-fraud systems and so on and so forth. At the procedural level, I do things like policies, procedures to implement securities in companies. And I also go and check in companies that the security in IT has been implemented. So I do audits from that point of view. Okay, next slide. Okay, how hard or not hard was to change from the university to this job that I'm doing now? For me, it's been easy. And the reason has been that I've been doing IT, networking, and security since when I started the university. Sometimes it's been a hobby, sometimes it's been a side job at the university. So I've been doing that for something like 15 years. When I decided that instead of being a part-time job, that should become my full-time job. Okay. And working with internet providers in 2000 and those years was really fun because it was the years where internet actually became mainstream and there was a lot to do and a lot to invent. Okay. The main point was for me somehow that I choose to be independent instead of having a fixed salary and a fixed job. I will come back to that. Okay. Next slide. What I brought from the university, I brought a lot. Okay. First of all, my years as university has been probably the most interesting years of my life. Okay, from a point of view of what I learned, of the people I met, of the culture and the environment, if you want. I did not find anything like that afterwards. So those, from this point of view, those have been my best years. Okay, and I formed my mindset, what I call my mindset. So somehow what is my peculiarity in my job, what is, I think, is really different from many other people that I meet. And there are two things I think. One is the approach I have to problems. Usually I see people run away from problems. I actually find that problems is actually something interesting because there is something to solve. And it's actually an opportunity in disguise, okay? This is very, very few people actually approach a problem as something of interest. They say, oh, there is a problem, let's find someone else to solve it, okay? So, and the other thing is that my wish and my interest to keep be interested in new things and to learn new things. Again, many people I meet, once they know something, they say, okay, let's just repeat this for the rest of my life, okay? So this is, okay, I'm not saying everybody is like that, but I mean, the attitude with respect to learning and to solving problems outside the university is very, very different. And that actually, in many situations, has been what has made a difference for me. Last slide. So you see, I've been very fast. What I suggest, what can I give an advice to the ones who, would quit sooner or later the job at the university and go to work in a company? Well, first of all, you have to choose what you want to do, and that should be both something you like and something you are good at. Okay. And be patient, because it will take sometimes it will take a long time before you get something out of it. You reach the goals you wanted to reach. Of course, it most probably will have nothing to do with what you're doing at the university, so nothing to do with string theory or things like this, but still the tools that at least that I learned when I was doing string theories are tools that I keep using every day, okay? And one thing that, in my experience, has been very important, but at the same time hard to manage, has been what I mentioned before, the story of being independent with respect to having a fixed salary. The independency, for me, has a greater value than the fixed salary. And the independency means being able, as I was doing at the university, to decide what to do, to look for a problem of interest and to solve that, to say no to some jobs because I find them boring. But that comes with a cost. Okay. Comes with the cost of not knowing what will be my salary at the end of the month in 2 years, but knowing only what will happen in a couple of months. Okay. Okay, that is a choice. Is a choice that, has, in my experience, was very important. Okay, that's it from me, and if there are questions later on, I will be happy to answer them.
Okay, very good. Let's start with that. So, is there a quick question from the audience? Oh, over here in the front. I'll repeat the question.
So it's maybe not really a question, but it's a comment on what we just heard from Ricardo and Andrea. So Ricardo made the point of don't do it alone, go for the team effort and the team importance before your individual importance. And then the point that Andrea was making, that we go to the problems, we don't run away from the problems. And if you take any book about leadership, those are the 2 qualities of leaders. So actually there's a room full of leaders here if you realize that point.
Okay, you probably did not hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the previous speaker was making an emphasis on teamwork.
Yeah.
And you made more an emphasis on
seeking the problem and not running away from it.
Seeking the problem and not running away from it. And so our guest here was mentioning that those are 2 important qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. Teamwork is very important. I don't want to have given the impression that, I'm a lunatic that lives in a different world, okay? I'm saying that I work alone somehow from the bureaucratical point of view. But as I said, I work for big companies at the moment. So when I say I do a project, usually there are from 10 to 50 people involved, okay? The part is that I'm independent, so I come there and I do what I want, in quotation marks, of course. Okay, but I have to work with 10, 50, 20, 30 people, so it's a team. Okay, that's important to work with other people. That's absolutely okay. But it's also important for me, at least, to bring my own ideas and my own problem solving. Okay.
Very good, very good. So let's thank Andrea again for his support. Thank you, Andrea, very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Easy communities like community and environment make it so that, in particular, near committee meetings or like busy moments, you work more than your 40 hours. Like overtime is not paid, but cannot complain about salary in general. And it's also, there's also a lot of flexible. I mean, in the other place, like the commission, etc., they have also the flexi time, so you can arrange your work schedule much more to your taste. And also there are a lot of possibilities for, I mean, of course, paid maternity leave, but also parental leave and part-time arrangements of all sorts. So it should be okay, at least if you're not that easy in super busy communities, but in general it should be easier to get the work-life balance, which is reasonable.
So for Andrea, I should work 8 hours a day, so 40 hours a week. But of course I wasn't happy about that, so it would be much less. I wasn't happy with it. So actually I use much time, like in the morning and in the evening, in subway, to study a lot. I mean, something that is not work related, or not directly at least. And then I also do some work at home on some personal project that I keep on doing. So the other part of the question was about flexibility. Well, in my case, it depends on the customer because I'm a consultant. So if the customer decides that you can work from home, for instance, you can work from home if you hit the deadlines. It depends.
Very good. Any other questions? Over there.
As researchers, we're allowed to go 2-3 times per year to a conference, discover new places, new cities, and so on. But I guess that in some cases, in some jobs, this is not really a possibility. Now, if that is not a possibility, do you miss that? And maybe a question to Emiliano in particular, do you go once per month to Strasbourg?
Okay, let's start. Well, yes, I do miss traveling, but I must admit that we have this company meeting once a year, so we spend 1 week in some city every year in, well, January or July, it depends. So, for instance, last year we went near Switzerland, and 2 years ago we went to Barcelona.
So personally, I still travel quite a lot. As an administrator in the parliamentary committee, you take members of parliaments to various delegations, and I had the opportunity to do this many times. Of course, it's a very different kind of mission than what you get here. If I'm off that, I don't know, it's a bit like organizing a school trip. Please erase this part. But of course, now it was just a joke. I mean, it's with the organizational part. But then you then happen to go in some settings which are interesting, like delegations usually go to visit things, I don't know, like in environment, in particular difficult situation, to examine how it is, or international conferences. I went to the Conference of the Parties of the Biodiversity Convention in India, and lately, last year, I went to Lima to the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change. Which is just quite funny. It's the 21st string workshop, and this December will be the 21st Conference of the Parties in Paris of the Climate Change Convention. Let's see, at the end of this year, we'll be able to say which of the two series of meetings have been more successful, I guess. Back to go to your specific question, the Parliament as such goes to Strasbourg once per month. I guess 1 month is twice, but yeah, 12 times. Usually, also to reduce expenses in parliamentary committees. I mean, there are people in some services who have to go. Like if you're in the plenary, organizing the plenary sittings, then you have to go. But people who work in committees, like me, don't go all the time. They go if you have specific things to do in Strasbourg, like if you are in the middle of a legislative file and you have to organize meetings, for example, you would go there because that's the place and moment where you have all members there all the time, so it's much easier to organize meetings within members of parliament, or you have your vote to follow, or whatever. But I would say on average once every 2 months.
Yeah, I also still go to conferences. abroad because also we do present our results to the community of the people in education and research. And also for a European project, I have project meetings, but this is a very different thing because they cover very few travel days, so you're basically getting there and being like 2 crazy days of meeting, and then basically you go back. So the level of comfort and also of feeling of community that you can have here and you don't have it there. This is more like a work. This project meeting is more like the work standard work trips. But I must say also, recently I went to a summer school, for instance, to learn. And I went to Paris for 3 days as a summer school in controversy mapping in the area of the sociology of science that I found very interesting. So in this sense, it was also a bit like a summer school that could be a summer school for physics, but for another field. So I don't have to miss it too much, I must say.
So in our case, it's comparable to you can consider yourselves. For me personally, it's a bit more traveling because there is also coordination between scientifically the same.
Well, the long story is a bit long on my side. I'll try to be very succinct. When I left the field here, I did feel like I was losing my international view. Being part of this community, I felt I had contacts, first-hand information, everywhere what happened in the world. Also sucked in back in the Belgian reality and cut off from the rest of the world. Took the time to start a family, and as my kids grew older and my liberty came a bit back to travel, I do travel quite a lot now. I typically at least spend 1 night per week in a hotel. There's people in my team, in our field, a lot of the exciting or the really challenging work obviously work happens in London or in Paris, and I do have enough contacts internationally to have people who are sitting here in Brussels working on such projects. Now, of course, it does sometimes mean that you have to have 3 months, 6 months, taking the train on Monday and coming back on Friday, and that's a choice that people have to make. But it is something we can offer them that basically you can combine living here and being exposed on an ad-hoc basis to those international clients. And again, the story usually is the first week is exciting, the third week you get used to it, and the fifth week it becomes a heavy burden. That's pretty romantic about all that. But one anecdote to close that off, I had a young guy who had done his PhD. He was started as engineer, did his PhD at UAB, I think it was, and then he worked on a project in London on a big bank. And he then said, well, I need to be 3 months in Belgium as I'm going to become a father. So we found him a project here in Belgium. And after 4 weeks after birth, he came into my office and said, you know, I connected back to the partner in London because I'm wanting to go on the assignment. So I asked him, the baby doesn't sleep well, does he? No, he doesn't. So that's the type of
Very good. More questions?
Maybe a difficult one. Would you estimate that your life in your new career is more or less family friendly if you stayed in research?
If it's more family friendly relative to academia, your new.
If it's more family friendly or not, that's an entirely personal question. It's up to you. I mean, you have to manage it. Nobody is going to manage your life for you. And whether you observe work-life balance or not is something that's entirely something you have to take in your own hands. And yes, if you do sort of international traveling, there is the very awkward moment when 6 o'clock in the morning you have your suit on and you want to run for the airplane. And your 16-year-old son tells you, I'd rather have you at home than running. So not a small child, you need a grown-up child. That's the day where you have to close your eyes and walk it in the weekend and try to explain why you're doing this. But at the same time, when you observe that work-life balance, when you create those opportunities, again, I don't think in what we do or someone else is a big difference. It's the mindset.
So, well, for me, it's the same, let's say, as university life. The only difference is if you are a postdoc, then it's not very let's say, family friendly. So in some sense, in my case, I came back to Belgium and then it became more family friendly in that sense, so to speak.
Yeah, in my field, I think it really depends how you want to do it, if it's family friendly or not. But also, I want to say something controversial here. I know it's controversial, but I must say also that my experience is that sometimes the people who deliver the most are the people who are putting the family sometimes aside and taking the work at home and working the weekends. And the people who really say, for me, my family life is sacred, so I never work at home, the weekends are sacred. I mean, sometimes, even they can cause problems if you have deadlines, if you have a project that you have to submit. So if you are the one who takes the responsibility, it is not obvious, even in an educational field, to say, I always give priority to my family life.
Well, it's a bit difficult to compare because my daughter is 15 months old, so she was born already in a parliament setting. But I would say that, well, while as a physicist your schedule is, I guess, much more flexible. Basically, you can get in and out whenever you want. In my current job, it's easier to leave work at work and not having work in your mind all the time. That said, and also as I said before, there are arrangements for like you could take a couple of months of parental leave in the past 2 years, which means with almost no salary, but in addition to the holidays, to stay with my daughter. But then there are also small inconveniences like going to Strasbourg being one of them, for example. So again, I guess it depends on how you organize. I like the Friday afternoon off.
Okay, so in my case, I also went back to my country, so, well, I should say yes, my case was more family-friendly. But there's this tendency to work, to work more than the normal hours, so in our field we have this kind of ethic code that we shouldn't work more than 40, 45 hours a week. So it should be a family-friendly job.
Very good. So I think we're running a little bit late on time, but I want to thank all of you for all of your